Alright, heidi ho folks. In this video, I'll be discussing the commodification of Australian workers. Fun topic. In today's Australia, the workforce is a very interesting and varied place. Obviously, it still functions to a decent degree, and we are still semi-competitive on the world stage. However, all is not good. We seem to live in a fake economy, which is propped up by an export market consisting partly of livestock, mineral, and coal that accounts for roughly 20-40% of our GDP, and is steadily rising. This has had an interesting impact on the people on the ground, the citizens and workers of Australia. The workforce today consists of many low-paid, uncertain workers. Although we have a decent amount of consistent work, it seems that a significant portion of the workforce suffer with job uncertainty and inconsistency in the ways that workers are rostered. The workforce seems to suffer the most, even in a climate where we have a strong minimum wage and a fairly decent unemployment. This is because most of the workforce is casual and is treated entirely as disposable. Long gone are the days when you could find a lifelong career in a job in a local community working with people that you know. Now, every job feels like a double-blind, randomized control study for the University of fucking Woolworths. With that comes the fact that nepotism plays strongly in the corporate structure of most businesses, ranging from the supposedly worst to the supposedly most wholesome. You have no idea whether you'll be working tomorrow, within the next 3 days, or within the next 2 weeks even. This leads people to starve, and the workforce is now suffering more than ever at the hands of businesses, because it is allowed to cause that suffering. People claim that the government is supposed to represent the people. However, for today's younger, entrant workforce, this seems far-fetched. People seem to live in a bygone era of policy based on an age past. This is allowed for businesses, although forced and regulated by new wage legislation and so-called fair work mandates, to abuse the current unemployment to rinse staff into a spot where they have no negotiating power or no future within the business, lest they be absorbed into the nepotistic and sadistically uncooperative environment of the upper echelons of intercorporate middle management. This has been compounded by the complete gutting of unions over the last number of years, and the government's lapse in meaningful legislation of practices to ensure workers with jobs that are consistent and livable. The corporation for many years has desired after a destructive amount of control over how much they can extract from a single human being in regard to unquestioning labour at the risk of their position within the company. To have any number of standards as a worker, especially low-tier or unskilled workers, is unfeasible. If you do, for some reason, have standards or desires for work, then you will be threatened, discarded and cut down, such that every day your rumbling belly and poor environment will be a constant reminder of your dissension. They wish only to make sure you know that they are in absolute control, and that your well-being and health or desires are completely irrelevant to any level of the corporate chain. Even though virtue signaling may go on about the nature of their relationship with your mental health or physical well-being, the truth of the matter is that you are entirely disposable as a low-tier worker in any business, reminded every day that you could be replaced within an instant. The corporation wishes exclusively to have total dominion over the labour that any one human being provides within their workspace, and will go to any length to make sure they maintain that power. They will do this, especially in the newer age, using the idea of casual labour. Casual labour is a sect of the workforce who get paid slightly more than part-time or full-time workers for the sake of them only being rostered when they are needed or called in when either one of the other casuals or another part-time member of staff is unable to complete their shift. The corporation will proceed to control the entire workforce by making most of their workers casual. Casual workers have the fewest protections and the least bargaining power, and as such, any business can take them for a ride ad maioris. This allows them to leverage the sanctity of a worker's financial well-being to ensure that they remain fully cooperative at work. And if they aren't, they can pseudo-unemploy them by cutting their worked hours to basically nil. Consistent and apparent casual commodification of the Australian workforce is a major reason why a lot of the younger population struggle in today's Australia. Their inability to negotiate any of their work tenants and a complete fealty to their workplace's needs drives these people into an objectified, subhuman state of being. Their having to bend the knee and never have a life of their own for the need to beg for shifts whenever they are available destroys the sanctity and respect one might have for their own life and imbibe them as a pawn of industry. Being uncertain that you can pay your bills and rent each week, being entirely subservient to phone calls in, and never being given a cohesive schedule metastasizes the mental and fiscal well-being of most of Australia's young and incoming workforce. This disgusting abuse of what is supposed to be a convenient mode of work for the benefit of massive corporations who shit down the throats of community and destroy any aspect of a local market has to stop. These corporations will never act in good faith, and the government seems to facilitate this behaviour even though they are supposed to represent the desires of the people. If it weren't for the complete limp-wristedness of the Australian unions, especially the likes of SDA, who get meaningless change for an infinitesimally small number of workers for the sake of maintaining their close relationships under the flagship of workplaces like Woolworths, maybe this entire thing would have been different. However, continuous legislative lapses from the Australian government and complete inaction on the behalf of the unions has left the Australian worker out to dry. Enough is enough. If we want to solve this issue, new legislation has to be introduced to guarantee shifts to employed members of any corporation who want a minimum number of hours per week in the agreement that they sign in their contract, and the government can no longer let the Australian workforce live in fear as to whether they can eat or not. The unions also have to change their way of working with people and ensure that casual labour is not so readily waylaid in any consideration of a business's functionality. They have to stand up for the people that pay them and not beside those who abuse their members. It's time for change. This injustice can go on no longer. And if it does, then no doubt that the economy will collapse once people learn to stand up for their right to have consistent, meaningful work. I've been Elite Crake. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, like the video. I'll see you next time.